Welcome to another episode of Intuition First podcast with your hosts, Heather McKay and Christine Mira. We're here to connect you to your intuition and the gifts of the universe to get more out of your life and your business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Intuition First. I am Heather McKay.
And I'm Christine Mira. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about an interesting topic that has come up in conversation. We're going to be talking about emotional intelligence and what that means and how that can play a part in our lives for us to have it and for us to see it in others and for other people to have it or not have it. So,
some people don't have emotional intelligence, and those are people that are probably highly analytical, work in the technology industry, or accounting or banking. When I mention those professions, you sort of get who that person is, yeah?
Right. And like engineering, maybe.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah. Those are the people that rely heavily in the physical world for their understanding of how it works. Like numbers make sense to people. It has its own flow. Science, many science people, I can't say all, but a majority of science people have that kind of job where they're looking and observing, and they're identifying themselves with things that are real in front of them. And emotional intelligence is one of those words that's being thrown around a lot lately because we realize that when we operate in business that it's more than just facts and figures. There's this thing called the human relationships that we have with others. And some people just don't get it, and it's okay. But we thought we'd try and define it just to give it some body and context. And for those of you who are in the social arts, meaning you're teaching, you're educating, you're constantly in relation with somebody else, whether that be in work or family or whatever, you get emotional intelligence because that's coming at you all the time in the kind of relationships that you have. This is not really a conversation of trying to bridge the gap between people who don't have it and people who do. It's more of an illustration of how emotional intelligence sort of influences and comes in and out of your day, just so that you have a mechanism for reference.
Right. And I know for me, I'm in marketing, have been my whole career. And in marketing, you have to understand your audience. You have to understand their wants, needs, desires so that you can try to sell a product, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I feel like emotional intelligence comes in not only in my work where I have to try to empathize with my audience, but because, like you said, because it's coming at me all the time, because I have to be aware of it all the time, that I utilize it in my other relationships, in the office, in my family. I can pick up on certain cues that maybe other people might not notice, body language, tone of voice, things people say, things like that. And I feel like that contributes to trying to understand the person, what they're thinking, what they're going through, so that I can respond appropriately and not dismiss whatever type of, feelings or whatever they might be having at the time, if there is anything going on,
mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody who is speaking from a place of emotional intelligence, meaning that they need more than just a yes or okay or, minimal as possible. They're the people that are relational and want to engage. And the way that you can satisfy that person is to listen deeply and ask a lot of questions, because then they feel like, you're enrolling and that you care. So that's a really important part of somebody who has a high, we call it EI, emotional intelligence. That's what,
or EQ, yeah.
EQ. That's what
sometimes
they say. when you read all these human resource articles. Yeah. And anyway, the other part of emotional intelligence is learning to access your intuition, because
Exactly.
your intuition can listen and hear and observe things in a way that your analytical mind can't. And usually how that is by leading with your heart. When you can be open hearted and you can really receive someone, your intuition is being activated. So while all this is happening in this physical world and this exchange, there's this other thing, which is your intuition, and it is getting little, how do you say, spidey senses? I think that's
I
the
say my spidey sense. One
yeah,
could say hits or, whatever, but I always say my spidey sense tells me
right. Yeah,
something's not right or something is off or whatever.
or something's good, something feels good, and
Exactly.
you follow that.
Mhm.
um yeah, and so if you are that analytical person and you have that kind of job, you too have the ability to access your intuition. It's just that you don't give it a big voice in your life, where
Right.
somebody with emotional intelligence is utilizing, probably most likely, their intuitive senses along with the physical um, observation and cues that they're getting here. So they're getting a bigger picture. Um,
Right.
Somebody told me that your emotional intelligence is very high when your corpus callosum, which is the membrane between your right and left brain hemisphere, when you have a large corpus callosum, because things are integrating back and forth inside your head freely. Most people operate from one side of their brain or the other. It's sort of rare that you have people that do on both sides equally. So if you are struggling with it, don't feel bad. There's not something that's wrong with you. It's just the way you're designed. But understand that if you're having breakdowns in communication with people and you're coming from, that analytical side all the time, you might read some books or listen to some tapes or some podcasts so that you can gain some tools
Right.
and be able to interact with somebody who has a lot of those needs. You might be married to somebody that's the opposite of you. And if you're having communication breakdowns, it might be from that place.
Right. And you just might not even realize it. I know we have done some of those personality tests at work. And for me, I am in the disc world. If you've ever
Mhm.
done disc, I'm a high in the I category, which is influence, and the C category, which is conscientious. That means I'm an influencer type personality, open, whatever. And the conscientious side means I'm very detail oriented. So that is definitely, and I'm also creative in my personal time. So all that, swirling around together makes me I feel like a little more open to a lot of different. I can talk to an analytical person, a technical person about computers or whatever, but then I can also, make small talk at a networking event. So,
Mhm.
but I have to recognize as a person who does that, that not everybody does
Can.
that or is that way, so that I don't feel slighted, so that I don't feel or whatever when they are just being how they are. And I try to adapt to their
Yeah.
communication style too.
I mean, most people don't realize that there's this whole range in the ability of communication.
Right.
Like you think that everybody listens and processes the way that you do, because all you have is yourself and your frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, doing self-awareness work or having inner awareness is so important, because there's a wide assembly of people on the spectrum of where you are and where they are. And I mean, it's just a miracle that we actually communicate as well as we do with the
That's the
people that
truth.
we know, because like my late husband, he was very introverted, and he was a man of very few words. And we lived together, and one of the things that was challenging for me is he would never talk. We never exchanged chit chat because he didn't chit chat. Words were a waste of time unless you had something to say that was important. He just never said it. I mean, the joke used to be, if I tell you I love you once, that should be enough. And the day I tell you I don't love you, you should know you're in trouble.
Right. That is a man of few words.
I remember there were times when, we'd be in the kitchen and I'd be cooking and I'd look across the kitchen and I'm like, hello, I'm in the room. Hello. Because as you can tell, I'm an extrovert and he was an introvert. And so there was this huge gap in our communication. But
right. As extroverts really like other people to talk to us. I have the same thing.
Right. So, and we usually attract our opposites that way. That's why I said you might be married to somebody where you're having this struggle. The one thing I learned in being in a relationship to him is if I asked him questions, like extroverts just freely give whatever, blah, 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 blah. But with an introvert, you have to ask poignant questions and they're happy to answer you. And then you need to come up with a set of questions.
Right.
So you're having the dialogue. So
unless you get into whatever you want is fine. Then that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah. What would you like for dinner? I don't know. What would you like for dinner? I'm okay with whatever you want. What do you want?
Right. But then if my husband comes back to me and asks me, well, would you rather have, pizza or Mexican food? I can usually tell you which one I want, or if I truly don't care,
Yeah. But you're not the introvert. You should be asking him those questions.
I know. I do ask him that. He is the introvert. I do ask him those questions. But a lot of times he will default to whatever I want, which puts it back to me.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, give me some choices because I'll do better with choices.
Right.
And I'll answer you, with whatever my leaning is.
Yeah, my youngest son is designed like my late husband, and we have that conversation. What do we have for dinner? I don't know. What would you like? I don't know. Why don't you make a decision? Well, because I want you to eat what you want to eat. It sounds like that.
Now, my husband and I do well as far as cooking, he likes to cook, but he doesn't like to think of what to make. So I'm pretty good at putting together. I can look in the cabinet and say, okay, we have this, let's do this. And he's like, okay, I'll make that. He doesn't care. He just doesn't want to have to put it together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, that makes us a good combo.
Yeah.
We eat and I don't have to cook.
Right. Yeah. My youngest loves to cook. So it's sort of the same thing. We have this and this and this. Okay, why don't you make this? Okay.
Right.
So I'm spoiled.
Right. Too. Yes, I'm spoiled too, for sure.
So do you think we covered emotional intelligence?
I think we did. I hope we did.
Yeah.
Give somebody some insight into just taking a moment to think about how they communicate and how they expect to be communicated with. And that just to be aware, because I think a lot of times just being aware is the first step. Is if you stop and go, okay, well, why is this person bothering me? Or what is bothering me about this? Or what do I want from this conversation? And you're not getting it. Maybe if you do a little introspection, you can figure it out, whether you're the introvert or the extrovert. Does that sound right?
Right. An extrovert is always going to give you whatever you need without you even thinking about it, and doesn't mind talking about everything and anything.
Sometimes more than you want.
Right. And you're like, oh my God, stop. Right. And then an introvert is somebody who is not going to give you things to work off of to have a conversation. So me as the extrovert, I take that responsibility and I learn to ask a lot of questions. And if it's something I need them to participate in, I'll ask questions that are enrolling, in the sense that it makes them feel like, oh, that's a good idea. I want to do that. Oh, that was my idea. I don't care if they think it's their idea because I ultimately need their help. So if it
doesn't matter at the end of it.
Yeah, they're willing to join me. That's great.
Right.
So yeah, and EQ is really big in HR right now, and a lot of that has to do because they make the best managers. People who have high levels of EQ, they make the best managers. Whether that's in HR or it's a manager of a project in a division, or you have your own business, you have to have EQ in order to be able to speak to your customer in the way that makes them want to work with you. So
oh yeah, it makes total sense, because if you can't And if you can't notice things that may not be on this um, evident right on the surface, like if you can't tell that maybe somebody has something going on you need to be sensitive to, maybe you need to ask more questions, then you don't it's really hard for you to have any empathy for whatever the situation is. And that person is going to feel it. If you're especially I think in a work situation, if your employee doesn't feel like you care, it's a bad situation. They need to feel like you're it doesn't mean they cater to you over others or anything like that. It just means that you need to feel seen and that somebody cares about you as a person, not just an employee. So that's
Yeah,
probably
and
why they make good managers.
right. And I think that caring aspect of everything, like I got into a conversation with this guy about pickleball and tennis. And he was a big tennis advocate, saying, tennis teaches you how to be independent and give you good character. And I said, well, pickleball does too, but you get to have fun and joy and happiness. Tennis people tend to be too serious. He's like, see, you proved my point. And I said, well, actually, your paradigm is an old male paradigm that it has to be, you have to be stalwart and you have to, be strong and you look like this, da, 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 da. And I said, and mine is based on, the feminine model, which is built from collaboration, happiness, and joy. It's just, when I use those two models, which do you think someone's still going to thrive inside of? The stalwart, hard, sort of rigid
Right.
pathway, or somebody that you're filling up with joy and happiness because they're working for you and they feel like they're part of your family, or
Right.
being a
Part of a
happy
team.
family. Yeah, they're a part of the team.
Yeah.
So I think the old way of doing business, well, we've seen, with a lot of people coming back after COVID,
Right.
there's a disruption happening in employment, and that has to do with all of that because life's too short and you may die.
Absolutely. You literally could die. I
yeah,
know. And I think that's all too real for people nowadays.
yeah, 700,000 people have died now. So um, that that uh, that phrase we used to throw it out, sort of like, oh, you could die someday. Nobody took it too seriously.
Right.
Now we're like, oh, you could die. Like everyone gets it. Yeah, I could die. And do I want to keep doing what I've been doing at the place I've been doing it? Have I really been that happy?
Do I feel cared for? Do I feel like I'm part of the team and contributing to the bigger good? It really makes you stop and think. It really does.
Yeah, because somebody had said to me a long time ago, I don't want to spend the best years of my life making somebody else's dream come true.
I've heard that too.
Right.
So true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And while making your own dream come true takes a lot of work, discipline, and consistency, it's your dream.
Right. It's not somebody else's.
Right. And if I'm working on someone else's dream, they better treat me right. And I'm not talking about money. Right. I'm talking about daily attitude. And like I have a client right now, and we've had a couple hiccups this last couple of weeks, and I've stopped what I've been doing and just focused on fixing whatever comes up. And I really appreciate that she acknowledges me. Like, thank you. I know you gave your morning up, to work on this project with me. I really appreciate that you stopped what you were doing to fix this. Like that buys a lot of goodwill from me to her.
Yeah, and it's such a small thing. It's such a small acknowledgement. It doesn't take hardly any effort to just acknowledge somebody for what they do or what they've done or an extra effort that they made, those kinds of things. It's really important though. Really, really important.
Well, I think part of, emotional intelligence also comes from a place of appreciation. You appreciating someone else, you acknowledging someone else, you passing on kind words, you seeing them for their contribution. Like that's part of emotional intelligence too. And you can do that freely. So many good things just come out of that.
Absolutely.
I can't even describe how many good things come out of that, but just be kind in your acknowledgments, and let someone know how much you appreciate them.
Absolutely. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this episode. And we would love you to subscribe and follow on your podcast player of choice or on YouTube and tag us.
Yeah. And don't forget to share. Like if you think this
Absolutely.
conversation will help someone else, or might brighten someone's day, or you need to give somebody a tidbit, please like share our podcast and our YouTube channel with them, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help people understand, get a better understanding of what it means to be here on the planet. So
Absolutely. And if you'd like to hear other topics, please let us know. We're always all ears about whatever anybody wants to talk about.
yeah, we're looking for your comments.
We sure are. We sure are. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Intuition First. We're so glad that you chose to spend your time with us today. If you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them and tag us on Instagram at Intuition First. We'd love to hear what you enjoyed and what you'd like to hear more of. And until the next time, keep listening to your intuition. It really knows what it's talking about.